Welcome back to the Daily Report. We're just wrapping up here with the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. We're talking about NISIP, the National Irrigation Sector Investment Plan. We're talking about a multi-pronged approach to solving some of the problems we have with water, security and water scarcity. When I see us, we were talking about making this project viable for the common mwananchi, right? A lot of Kenyans look at these projects and they seem like something so far away for other people. It seems so scientific and so hard to grasp. These frameworks seem so foreign to them most of the time. What does NISIP have to do with the common mwananchi? How will I benefit, for example?
NISIP to the common mwananchi is actually very viable, because we have targeted all categories. We have looked at the corporate agribusiness. We have looked at the people in ASALs by vitalized ASAL irrigations. Mm-hmm. And those are some of the common mwananchi. Mm-hmm. We have looked at the community-based, literally the people who are organized into communities in our counties. Mm-hmm. And then we have looked at what we have called the farmer-led. Mm-hmm. The common mwananchi is the small farmer. Mm-hmm. It's not these large-scale farmers who are doing 1,000 acres, right, 10,000 acres. Mm-hmm. We are talking of 1 acre. Mm-hmm. And even 1 to 5. Mm-hmm. Common mwananchi might not even have 1. Might have his half acre, which is normal for the young people, mm-hmm, especially, mm-hmm, because now, resources are finite.
Right.
We build your capacity at whatever level, mm-hmm, of the food chain you are.
Right.
Because who needs more training? The mechanized farmer, the large-scale farmer, who can actually even bring experts on his own, or the small-scale farmer, who needs help at every stage of the way. Right. And then we organize these farmers, mm-hmm, into what I call either circles or cooperatives.
Right.
For them to have a bigger bargaining power. Mm-hmm. Those organizations also ensure sustainability, because, mm-hmm, you will be contributing, you will be maintaining the infrastructure, mm-hmm, especially the conveyance systems, mm-hmm, that break so often. Here I'm talking about the canals, right, that require desilting once in a while. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about intakes that can get vandalized. Mm-hmm. When you organize as a group, mm-hmm, the small farmers organize themselves. Mm-hmm. It is easier because of those small charges that you pay, right, to maintain the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And also when it comes now to bringing aggregators, mm-hmm, it is very difficult to bring an aggregator to one single farmer, small farmer. Right. But when all of you come together, mm-hmm, things like trainings become cheaper. You can even actually do what we call field trips to other farms as a group. Mm-hmm. Things like supply of fertilizers, mm-hmm, because you are organized as a group. We know the number and we know your demand. Mm-hmm. And then the benefit of friendships. Farming also brings people together. Mm-hmm. We are social human beings. So we assist each other, mm-hmm, at different levels, but we are bound together by a common goal, right, which is actually national integration, because our neighbors are different people. Mm-hmm. And therefore we get to learn each other's culture better, mm-hmm, and we also get to understand we are the same people, the same blood flows in our veins. Right. And this integration brings about national cohesion, mm-hmm, apart from now the finances, the money you'll get from farming, mm-hmm, and also the warm friendships we develop, mm-hmm, we become a better country. Right. So it's a holistic kind of picture in it.
Right. Engineer, of course we know right now that we do import some of our food, actually most of our food, going up to about 700 billion Kenyan shillings yearly, just to feed ourselves. And this could be, solved by NISIP. We're talking about a 61% to 39% financing. We're talking about achieving most of this within the next 3 to 5 years, but 3 to 10 years, give or take. Mm. How exactly will this fruition begin? How will we reduce this amount?
Because agriculture also talks about irrigation contributes to agriculture. It's an interministerial kind of synergy.
Right.
Specifically under the ministry, we are mandated to produce rice. Rice is purely under the docket, the ministry. And as we speak, we produce around 250,000 metric tons of rice, and we have a deficit of around 700,000 metric tons.
Right. That's a big number.
It's a big number. It's a challenge. And that's why in our production, one of the pathways that we have, because the rice producers are mostly the national irrigation schemes. Here I'm talking about Moya. I'm talking about now the Bura that has come up. I'm talking about projects in Luakuja. I'm talking about projects in Bunyala. That is what now we are calling Nzoia, Lower Nzoia. One of the pathways, the fifth pathway that I didn't actually mention, was maximizing the output from our national irrigation schemes. How do you do this? First of all, you can't maximize what you don't understand. You do assessments.
Right.
Then you build capacity of the staff. And finally, you develop adequate water sources. For example, you go to an irrigation scheme like Pakera. The acreage is around 5,500 acres. The actual land under production is around 2,800 acres. You know what the challenge is? The land is available, the farmers are very willing to work, but we don't have adequate water.
Right.
The river Pakera fluctuates during the dry period and during the rain season. So when we actually need to do production, there is no water. And that's why I will talk of another dam that I think we are working towards achieving that as a ministry, but it's a very ambitious project. The High Grand Falls Dam, the one that is at the border of Tharaka-Nithi, Embu, and Kitui. That dam, we are floating it. We are looking for proponents and public-private partnerships. Would store 5 billion liters of water. 5 billion liters of water. That would be the biggest dam.
What's holding us back?
Finances. Because our feasibility studies say, our feasibility assessments say, we will require around 300 billion Kenya shillings to do. So how is that tenable from the exchequer? That dam will balance the water flows in River Tana. You see, River Tana is used to produce in Bura, right? It is used to produce in Hola, Kulechini, Spat. And this River Tana flows full and sometimes actually floods in the lower regions when it is raining like right now. And all that water that comes from Nairobi, the Tana catchment, ends up in the Indian Ocean during the dry period, and that water is wasted. When it is actually dry, like we were there when we were launching Bura irrigation, the gravity canal in Bura, you realize the river has dwindled so much. So the acreage potential under production cannot be sustained by the flow of that water unless you divert all of it into farming. And remember, you must have the environmental flow downstream. You cannot divert the entire river to farming because the people downstream are also dependent on that river. So that dam becomes like a balancing tank, a balancing reservoir. During the rain season right now, the dam will impound. It can impound 5 billion liters of water. Instead of that water causing havoc downstream and flooding happens, we just now regulate the flow. As the dry season sets in and the river starts dwindling, now you open your valves to supplement the flow in the river. So the farmer who is farming, if he's doing 100,000 acres in Bura, is assured that whether the river dwindles or not, we have a buffer, a regulating mechanism, storage in that dam.
Right. And how exactly, engineer, are we positioning ourselves for investors to come? Because if private-public partnership is the solution, and NISIP, of course, is coming in. How much can we get these investors to be interested in us?
See, the first thing in position yourself is to have a plan.
Right.
That is
how do we
plan.
make dams look commercially viable?
Another thing, the viability of a dam. See, in Kenya, in most communities, people believe water is free. I think where you come from, because where I come from, tunasema maji natoka msituni.
Yes.
Some say water is free actually. But that notion is what is making our water projects not viable. So because our PPP projects are taking too long to actualize, we have actually commenced an assessment of our SWOT analysis of our strengths and weaknesses. And one of the things that is clearly coming out is that the water industry, PPPs and the water industry have what we call a viability gap. Because the proponent or an investor, after doing his mathematics, will tell you that I'll sell 1 liter, for example, at say 150 Kenya shillings. Not 1 liter, 1 meter cubic, that is 1,000 liters, at maybe 150 Kenya shillings, for example. But now because we cannot privatize water, we have a service provider and a service regulator called WASREB, the Water Services Regulatory Board. It is supposed, it gives, based on locations, tariffs at what rate should you sell the water.
Right.
Now maybe it gives in that site, it gives a rate of say 110 per 1 meter cubic. So we have a gap, a viability gap of 40 shillings, for example.
Who bears that brunt?
And that is why PPP projects in water are facing a challenge.
Okay.
Going forward, we need to develop either a kitty to supplement that viability gap, because PPPs have timelines, concessional period. Maximum of, according to the PPP Act, a maximum of 30 years. So if this guy is to break even in a certain period of time, before he hands over the project, he needs to charge this amount, but the regulator says you can't go past this. So we find ourselves with a viability gap. To fund that, it's either we develop a kitty to be covering that, or the regulator reviews the tariffs, and that becomes a big problem to the people. So we have commenced a study, an assessment actually, to see how better we can position ourselves. Secondly, the ministry has what we call legacy debts. These things are real, whereby projects were done a long time ago, and those debts are still in our books because they were not repaid.
All right.
So when a proponent comes and checks on how the ministry is doing on matters finances and inspects our books, they find that we have pending amounts that we owe to treasury. And then it's like, if you can't pay this, and I invest like my 10, 5, 7 amount of money, billion or something, how sure am I I'll break, I'll recoup my investment? Right. And that, in a way, can scare them off. So to address all this, we need to have concerted discussions of actually how to solve the pending, the legacy debts that as per the evaluation by the ministry, that guys are looking, we are to the around above 180 billion Kenya shillings.
Right. Engineer, is there a possibility that the exchequer could come in this situation? For the greater good of the people, is it possible that the exchequer could come in?
Everything is possible.
Right, under the sun.
Under the sun. But also, we look, because I'm a logical man, we look at the physical space that we are having right now. That is what is, that's why I said it has to be objective and deliberate.
Right.
that water, being a social and economic right, we have to fine-tune our funding, especially because, for example, to achieve 100% connectivity, because that's our target by the year 2030, we developed another, this is State Department of Irrigation, correct? Right. We are talking about.
Yes.
Under the State Department of Water and Sanitation, we have what we call NISIP, National Water and Sanitation Investment Plan, another one like this. This was done before my tenure. And the projections were done by the engineers and the technical team in the ministry brought it to around, we need a total of around 995 billion Kenya shillings to achieve 100% connectivity. Now, if you compare that, that is a full basket that includes development partners, it includes the money we can raise from public-private partnerships, it includes the exchequer, grants, and also blended financing. Now, the government is mandated to provide basic services to the people, but now, because of our financing space, that's why we are very keen on attracting development partners in the ministry. It's the same thing I'm telling you. So it has to be deliberate and very objective.
Right.
Yeah.
Engineer, one would ask then, you know, you've been in this ministry for a while now.
6 months, not a while. Just
to be honest, you know, the thing with being a young person is 6 months is a very long time. I think for the older generations, 6 months could be, you know, a very short amount of time. What would you say is your legacy? What exactly have you done so far within that ministry?
This, what I'm launching is part of my legacy, to be honest. To streamline and leave a well thought out process on how to handle irrigation. Secondly, we have delivered the Bura. You know, Bura Canal, the canal,
yes.
Since 1979. Those guys could not believe that water will one day get to their farms by gravity. As late as December, every month we used to pay fuel charges because water was being pumped to a tune of around 15 million every month. And the achievement of that ensures that those people for the remaining 40, 50 years will never incur the charges of fuel. And that water, one of the farmers complained the other day, the water is too much.
Right. Suffering from success.
You understand? And going forward, I would like to ensure that I complete the ongoing dams. You know, Mimi, I know that our main challenge is just water storage.
Right.
Even the supply, the last miles, cannot happen if you don't have a source. That's why I'm very keen on Mwach. I met it at 12%. As we speak, it's about 22, 23% ongoing. I've been there more than twice.
Right.
Suyu Murunya, I met it around 79. It's around 85. But we still, because this is funded by the government of Kenya and the fiscal space we are in, we are still struggling with that. This dam we are talking about here, Thwake, this dam has been, it's the closest we have to actually complete a key dam.
Right.
At least to impound. We are hoping when we get the resources, we can impound by the short trains of December. And I am very keen to complete that.
Right, and when do we launch NISIP officially? You know, TV47 was lucky enough to get a slice of the cake before everyone else. We get to unveil NISIP before all else. But when do we officially launch it?
The big day is on 21st.
Right.
This month, not next month, this month on Friday. And we are saying there is room for everyone. Come to Semezane. To
Semezane, jamani.
Yes.
And one last question as we wrap up, Engineer. Someone is asking, did you finally buy that car?
Not yet.
6 months.
Why does that matter? We are talking about NISIP, correct?
Yes, we are, but people are curious. I had to ask on behalf of the people.
What are the people asking?
Of the people.
Not yet.
Not yet. Tentatively when? By God's grace.
Right now we focus on delivering the mandate, and it's a lot actually. It's a lot, but I think you've seen I'm up to the task.
As I would say, yes, you are. Thank you so much for joining us. Bwana CS, I've had a very, tumenongonezana, and we've gotten to know some of the things that the ministry is working on, and if irrigation is truly viable, and some of the benefits that it's going to have on you, your farms, and your productivity. It's been a wonderful Wednesday night. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Daily Report and the Marketplace. From me, Hibak Said, it's good night. And from the sign language interpreter, Roda Nyamai, it's good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.